Do we want to add Laura's piece to public comments here, or do we want to add it to the agenda officially?
Um,
I
I
think we
think,
should add it to the agenda. I'll move that we amend the agenda so that after minutes, we discuss a potential letter about the wake sport
Sure.
rules.
Let's add that after the conservation plan update.
Sure. That
all
works.
right.
For official.
Does that require a vote, a movement?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll move it be added after the conservation planner update.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Thank you. So we'll just move as motioned here, and go straight into public comments. Are there any public comments?
We were joined by Reed Willis this morning. Morning, Reed. Reed, do you have any public comment you'd like to share?
Or commissioners?
Or commissioners? I'm gonna, Reed, I'm gonna turn on your mic here. We're in webinar mode. You're welcome to talk.
I don't have
Reed.
anything to say, sorry.
No, no worries.
Thanks.
No worries.
Reed is usually.
Well, we can wave. Hi,
Yeah,
Reed.
great to see you.
Thanks for being here.
All right, then let's move to the minutes.
All right, so the minutes are up on the board in the room, and let me share those for folks online who'd like to see them.
I had one element that I wanted to just, I think I remembered it happening in a slightly different way in the significant wildlife habitat discussion. The commission expressed mixed feelings about this approach, but agreed to permit it on a one-time basis. I think that's part of the discussion today, as part of our conclusion, and I would either say to strike that or just have it be the commission express mixed feelings about this approach. But will be part of a discussion at this meeting, basically. I don't know if that stood out.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it's my recollection, not so much that we did a straw vote of, hey, is everybody okay with this? And more that there wasn't any vocal opposition to
Right.
it
Right.
on the call. And so the assumption was
Yeah.
that's what we would be considering for a recommendation
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy to strike that. I'll just leave it as the commission expressed mixed feelings about this approach.
Great.
Not ideal, but we'll consider it for
Yeah,
the
I
recommendations.
think we'll keep that part in the record. Any other comments on the minutes? All right, can I get a motion to approve as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll
Second. Oh,
give it to Kim. Sorry.
All right, Kim.
Yes.
And Kim.
Excellent. I'll vote in favor of the minutes. Aye.
Aye.
hi. I'll be right back. I hear children screaming.
Okay.
I can't see this. I can't see our fellow commissioners. Is that possible to get their video?
Just
on the
me
screen?
on screen at the moment. You're not missing anything, David.
Okay, here. All right.
Eric, do you have one of those mug heaters that keeps your mug warm at your desk?
No, but now I'll be looking into one of those things.
Yeah.
I usually
I
drink my coffee so fast it doesn't get cold.
I know.
Yeah, my wife has one. She loves it.
They look really nice.
I personally think it's a fire hazard, but it's pressure. It's a heat pad that's pressure sensitive. What could go wrong?
Your cat can sit on it.
Yeah, Pepper could knock it over. Great. So then let's move into conservation planner update.
All right, so I just want to do one item this morning, which is to check in on Allenbrook Bridge or Allenbrook Boardwalk, which de facto became a little bit of bridge when the boardwalk under.
Oh, we can't see your screen.
He's gonna drag it over. think it's shared with us online.
Okay, yeah, I've fully given up on using this secondary computer because it gives a technical issue every single time. So trying to navigate the new split screen system. Okay. So this is the most recent final plans, or final proposed plan. I'm going to try to zoom in here a little bit from Engineering Ventures. The scope of this project has not changed. It still calls for engineering hardscape of this bend in the stream here. The purpose of which to prevent that bend's natural erosion pattern from continuing significant undermining here, which would threaten the supports of the platform and expand the area of the original structure that's compromised to the east.
Can I ask a question about that, or do you want to finish?
Well, yeah, let me finish real quick. That approach, while you know, in some ways it's never ideal to use a hardscape feature to lock a meander in place, has been deemed reasonable by all of the different partner agencies we've had to engage with, from Fish and Wildlife to stream alterations to wetlands. We're now essentially at the finish line with permitting. We're pretty much ready to go with getting signature from the school and from and sign it as applicants and submit that. So I wanted to bring that to you to see if there are any sort of final reservations or comments on this as proposed. The other elements, so because this is a permanent alteration of stream, or the wetlands, it calls for restoration plantings. So there's been proposed 2-to-1 enhancement plantings for bringing woody material into the stream, which will be a benefit. There's a lot of canary grass and other herbaceous material that's coming quickly after the beaver dam failure last spring. So it'll enhance the riparian habitat there and contribute to a quicker sort of recovery of that woody vegetation in those buffer. Those have been planned in the wetland part of the stream side as well as the floodplain areas. And the last component of it, which required some discussion, was simply the access path. So to do all this, we need to get an excavator down there. And that requires widening the path, which requires clearing trees out of the buffer. So there'll be a restriction on the timing of that because really the whole area of kind of Lake Champlain is mapped as federal habitat for tricolored bat and long-eared bat, which are federally protected species. So you always have to be careful about clearing in riparian areas if you're being reviewed for a project like we are for Act 250. So we'll have to avoid that clearing from around, I think it's June 1st to the end of July, which is the pupping season for those species. And however, that shouldn't be an issue. We should be able to remove any trees. And if we need to remove trees to get that equipment down there, which we probably will have to do 1 or 2. It'll depend on how large the equipment is once we get a contractor. It can most likely be done before June 1st, facilitating this project to begin after that. So that's kind of the whole update, and I wanted to present this to you before we submit for those permits officially and get your comment as the committee.
Reed?
Okay. Couple part question, and some of these may be things that are either not that important or the engineer can answer if you don't know off the top of your head, David. But so the area that under the dark gray portion, that kind of low-lying swath that runs up and down there, it's pretty deep right now. Is that going to get filled in to allow the excavator to get in, or what's happening there?
Yes, great question. So that is going to be partially filled. In the first version of this, we showed back in the summer, the engineer had actually proposed filling the whole secondary channel.
Yeah,
And
Hmm.
you had questions about that. I had questions about that. We went out there with the stream engineer, Chris Burnell, and he said, no. This channel is gonna be the secondary overflow channel for this stream. That's just the hydrology. So the engineers amended that.
so water still has to be able to get through there
Exactly.
during certain times.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it will be partially filled, and
With like large crushed stone or something so that it can't be washed away.
yeah, with,
That's the idea.
so there's large stone and then there's small crushed stone. There are two sizes of stone that kind of go into each other. I think that's part of the fill pattern.
Okay,
So some of that will occur in this area. And then, there'll also be some grading of the stream banks as part of that installation.
Okay.
Um,
the second question is what the armament is made out of, mostly out of curiosity, because I've not seen this before. Is it metal? Is it? Like what is the
stone.
actual, okay, so it's gonna be,
It's stone, yeah, it's,
so they're gonna adjust the grade and then install stone onto that grade that
Yeah.
shouldn't wash away when it tries to meander further.
yes.
And then this seems like it's probably basically gonna act as if, like, what if there were some ledge there that wouldn't erode, how would the stream behave? But did they give any indication of what we can expect, for instance, toward the top and right of this map? I mean, eventually it seemed as though that bend would oxbow at some point.
Mhm.
It would just keep eating away in the upper right and keep eating away until eventually it can bypass this corner.
Yeah,
Does that jive with what?
so it's a great question and it's impossible to fully predict how the stream will evolve, but my answer, and as I put a lot of thought into this and I would really try to put this solution to some scrutiny because it's, something like this, while it will be effective at preventing this whole portion of the bridge from being, or boardwalk from being compromised further. In the grand scope of this stream and its dynamics, it's a temporary solution, right? Because the stream will evolve. So how will that impact it? And the answer is that there's no one and done project for a structure that crosses a floodplain. So we're gonna have to be monitoring this. My expectation is, streams tend to cut on the outside and infill on the inside. So yes, this part, which is not shown, but if you imagine this extending, will continue to cut here and could cut all the way through, leaving this as an oxbow. That's certainly a possibility. However, you also have the stream on this side, cutting here.
Yeah,
So this could cut in over time,
we could try to shortcut. Okay.
right? And this could become the primary channel. So there are still a lot of things that could happen. And one of the things that I learned about this project only more recently is that when this whole bridge was resurfaced in 2008, only a few of the posts were replaced. The whole thing was resurfaced, but the idea was to minimize or, keep costs reasonable for the town and to reuse what elements of the structure were reusable. So all of these posts that were on, what seemed like dry ground at the time and not right on the stream or not needing any immediate reinforcement at the time were left in place. Those are straight steel posts that have been there since 2008. And where they're replaced with helical piles, and helical piles go down below the frost line. They've got this big disc at the base that gets screwed in, and so they are resistant to, high water, something that might try to pull that bridge away. They're more resistant to it. Those posts, as we've seen, a little erosion and they'll fall into place. So I think that, even once this project is complete, I think the Allen Brook Boardwalk, this structure really needs to go in the capital plan as something that we need to be looking at long-term investment in, continuing to replace those posts over time with helical piles and just making sure that this structure we're not going to get to the point where, okay, a different part of the structure fell down and now we need to close it again. We're going to need to be proactive about putting money away so we can get ahead of those kinds of stream dynamic changes.
Is replacement of those piles more or less just labor and not any type of heavy equipment like excavators and clearing?
It's like
It
a bobcat
is-
type machine.
Yeah,
right?
it's to do it in the best way possible, you need a mini excavator, which is like a 5 foot wide little machine that is as far as it's described to me. So it isn't necessarily something that you need to do clearing for to enhance the path, but you do have to be thinking about how are you going to get that down there, and probably have to, given the permit history of this site, make sure that it would probably wouldn't be the same permit burden as this. Really, the permit burden on this project came entirely from the proposal to put fill in the stream, the stonework. That's what triggered the individual wetlands permit, which triggered the Act 250 permit. When it comes to rehabilitating a structure in its existing footprint, even if there are some temporary impacts, we're gonna have temporary disturbance to wetlands so we can get in there and replace these posts. It's not the same permitting burden, and may not even require a permit amendment. It may just require a check-in with the wetlands program.
Replacing one post with another type of
Yeah.
post.
So, it was something that I was thinking about as this, once I learned that detail, I was thinking about, does that change anything? It still seems like from everyone that's reviewed this project, they understand why we're doing it and agree that it's a rational approach to solve this problem and get the bridge serviceable again. Certainly it would be out of budget and take this project off the shelf if we were to go back to zero and propose replacing every single post in the structure with an upgraded helical pile. Then you'd be stripping the whole thing and replacing it. The whole focus on this repair since its inception, the end of 2023, was fix the damaged portion, get this back in service. So we've been saddled a little bit with that approach, but as far as what I've checked into and tried to do due diligence on, all the feedback I've received, I'm kind of waiting for someone to tell me that this was a bad idea. And so far, everyone has said, from an environmental perspective, it's never ideal, but we absolutely understand, and you're trying to balance safety, public access, and it's a relatively small portion of the stream. It's not gonna make or break the aquatic riparian environment in the floodplain.
So I guess on that point, you're fortifying the inside of the bend, and the erosion happens on the outside of the river bend. Is there fortifications happening on that outer rim?
Well, this is the outer bend
Okay.
of that portion of the street. Once it changes over this bend, so this is the inner, the inner bank on this bend, and then this becomes the outer part of the bend for this area. So this is where the cutting would occur. And even if you look out there, it's really close in this whole area. And so what would be happening over this next season, it would continue cutting back, and this post, these would start to be compromised. And these posts up here would start to be more exposed. So without that filling, this whole section would probably need to be replaced in short order as well. So
it actually it looked to me, or maybe the first way I was reading this was that you were filling on the inside channel. I was questioning why that is, but you're filling on the outside channel against that development.
Yeah, I think this it is a little tough to see. There's so many overlapping lines. But I think this is the large stone, and then this is the smaller grade crushed stone. I think, is it right? Or either this is showing the grading. I'd have to look more closely. This could be showing the grading footprint, and that could be showing the stone footprint. But
Eric has a hand.
Eric, go ahead.
Thanks. I don't, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Probably should have brought it up like a year ago, but I just feel like it needs to be is this the best location for this bridge? Like listening to just listening to the conversation and about how, we need all the work we need to do with the pilings and all of that, and then need to prepare for it to be washed out again or advanced maintenance and looking at Google Maps. Um, this seems like a pretty dynamic part of the brook and moving it upstream 100 yards or so, maybe a little bit less dynamic. I'm just asking. I'm not suggesting when we back up and all that, but I'm just wondering is this the best location
Yeah.
for this crossing?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Eric, and I'm glad you asked it. And it is something that you have to answer that on the wetlands permit application. Is this the best location? What are the alternatives you considered? From what I've looked at with, and I think I recall this committee looked at it this summer. If you look up that corridor on Google Maps, there's nowhere that it gets significantly narrower. It remains floodplain. And so if you imagine, okay, we'll move it up 100 feet, to where everything looks more stable and less dynamic.
Mhm.
What you'd be doing is you'd be going back 30 years to this site. Where this
Right.
structure was
Yep.
put in was that kind of circumstance. Let's pick a portion of the floodplain that looks pretty stable, that has mostly dry ground and no significant meanders. And then over 30 years, that really changed. And so we'd just be deferring the same problem. And at the same time, you'd be doing completely brand new wetland impacts.
Mhm.
You'd be deconstructing the entire existing structure, including the parts that are still currently serviceable. So it was, for that reason, you're replacing the existing structure with a structure there's no guarantee that it is going to be any better in terms of the issues faced. And you'd be having all new impacts, including having to create a new access path through the buffer. And so that was the rationale that we've incorporated into the wetland permit.
Okay.
Really, in terms of why this alignment is still, even though it's not the best, it's still it's the best solution in terms of meeting the project objective, which is to restore the recreational access. Kim, go ahead.
This is going to be an even more controversial statement, and I'm not saying that I'm advocating for this position, but I do think that we should ask ourselves how much effort we're willing to spend to maintain this long term, because it is a very short connection. There is an alternative route on the bike path that is not that far away. And although this is beloved by the community, I do feel like we should be saying what is this very short connection worth? And is there a way that we could more efficiently and more sustainably meet the needs of the people who are using this path? And perhaps that is I think one of the reasons that kids go that route and don't travel along the bike path that is I don't know how many feet over along North Williston Road is because the median between the bike path and the sidewalk in North Williston Road is really narrow and feels scary for parents. I feel that way. Could there be improvement there? So I just think from a recreation planning standpoint, this is a lot of resources into this one area that is going to continue to be a problem and is I don't know, maybe ecologically questionable. We should at least be discussing if it's really the great idea rather than just saying a lot of people use it, let's keep doing it. I don't know, a lot of people are climbing in Green Mountain National Forest in illegal climbing spots. It doesn't mean it's great and should be continued, So I'm not advocating that we abandon this, but I do feel like we haven't had the conversation about it that maybe I feel like we should have.
Yeah, Laura?
For what I remember, this is the cheap fix we went for to get it back up, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
so I think so many people in our community have been asking for this. We've all had people asking for this, that because it's the cheap fix and we're there, I think it's a good idea to go ahead. If it keeps failing, or as Dave said, we have to keep an eye on it and keep money ready to put posts in. Or if we get another flood and it's gone, then we say, okay, well, we did what we
We
could.
did best effort to try to keep it functional.
Yeah.
That's how I feel too, and I think I agree, Kim, that the larger discussion about connectivity in the village and around the school needs to happen. I don't know that Parks and Rec or planning, as the planning commission, as they're looking at all the connectivity pieces, are thinking about this as something within their purview, but perhaps we should be having joint discussions with larger connectivity that we don't pay attention to, like bike path. I don't know if there's bike path improvements already planned along North Williston Road, for instance. So we should have that conversation, but I think I'm comfortable with moving forward with this as proposed, and then to David's point, talking about long-term funding, long-term, are we going to fix this again if it blows out, or is this the last iteration of this project that we're willing to support?
From my point of view, I'll just say, I think the path is sort of what's under our jurisdiction, and is the path reconstruction the way that it's proposed the most reasonable and the least impactful? And I think that's, I'm with Kim and Eric on, like, is this the right structure? Is this the right crossing? We did have that discussion last summer, and we tabled it for the purpose of wanting to proceed with a very, what is clearly an Act 250 permit, and so therefore very, very deliberate and detailed. And that was going to be sort of hard enough as it is. So I think really what we should be asking ourselves now, and I appreciate the question that Eric and Kim have now raised, is, is this the least impactful form of proceeding with the existing structure? And, I think it is. I think it seems reasonable based on everything that, Dave has explained, and the reactions from the other permitting specialists and agencies. Seems like this is our most reasonable path to get something up and running this summer. So for that reason, I support it. And I think we should have that discussion about, the longer term access and pathways around this zone. We spend a lot of time talking about trail easements in this committee. There's no reason why we can't think about trails and connectivity in areas where they already exist. It's just, it seems like a little bit of a luxury because we do have already access to and bike paths in this particular area.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would make sense to have a proactive conversation, because Laura just said if there's another flood, and I think that we need to come to the place where we realize it's not if there's another flood, it's when there's another flood.
Yeah.
We all know there's going to be a lot of floods.
Yeah, so I just, sorry.
I would just advocate that, like, it sounds like we're gonna probably move forward with this. Could we also add to our long list of future agenda items discussing like a plan for when this will, hope maybe it won't, and I'll be totally wrong, but like when this likely fails again, right? I think it's failed 2 or 3 times since I've been on Conservation Commission.
I will echo what Kim just said, and hope that this version lasts longer than a few years. But in the event that it doesn't, I think it would definitely be worth revisiting this location, the crossing at this location. But if we had, I don't think we need to vote on this. If we had to vote on this, what's on the screen here, I would be voting. I would vote in favor of it today.
I don't think we need to vote on this. I think the conservation planner was really just sort of like looking for recommendations for any last minute changes.
Yep.
And hearing none, I think you're good to proceed.
Okay. Yeah, I was supposed to say, I think mostly I wanted to make sure that there wasn't a large red flag raised to stop this where it is. Someone is
Thank you for
this is that, we've, and I've at times looking at this project, I felt like I'm on that fence where I'm like, is this really the best approach? But, at this time, I'm on board with it. It's the direction we chose and it's a pragmatic approach to accomplish the goals that have been put forth. So I wanted to make sure the Conservation Commission had that chance to, it's been a long road, but I wanted to make sure that there's ample room not to be stuck in that, sunk cost fallacy of like, well, we've already done all the work, even if the opinion had changed, that it was no longer an appropriate or best action, that we're kind of on autopilot. So that was why I wanted to.
I generally speaking, I would prefer fortification of an existing meander, especially on an outer channel where the stream velocity is such that there's not a lot of other like beneficial value happening right there. It's an active erosion zone, so there's not like a lot of like new plantings or eggs being laid there. Fortification is always better than channelization, right? I mean, I would much rather have that oxbow fortified rather than a new channel dug and then have that channel be like a straight path under the bridge and have it be totally artificial and valueless to the ecology of the stream. So I think for that reason, this is the right approach. This is the least amount of impact, for the value of the community. Yeah, this bridge is not long for this world. Anyone can look at it. It's basically,
We're tiptoeing over a
Yeah.
floodplain.
yeah, and it's not a bridge. I mean,
Right.
it is a boardwalk,
Right.
and it's built like that.
Okay. So I think, I've got the answer I need and it took a bunch of time, but thank you. I think it was important to have that discussion. So,
Thanks.
let's move on from that.
Okay, let's move to Laura's topic.
Okay, and if you could put up that little thing.
Yes.
So just a little history. First of all, I apologize. I wrote this over a week ago and I thought I had sent it to Dave, but it was in my drafts because I never pressed send. Which is why it's not on the agenda. So sorry about that.
I do that all the time. Like, I do that once a day.
Well, thank you, Ken. That made me feel better. Anyway, so Meg Handler, who has been involved in these wake boat rules, filled me in on what has been happening. And basically, the DEC, after they made the original wake boat rules, where a lot of the lakes in Vermont became incompatible with wake boat sports. As they looked at the rules, they realized that some of them were inadequate. So they came back and wanted to strengthen the rules. They actually wanted to strengthen them more than what is here. But the Agency of Natural Resources said, nope, we're not going to do that much. But we can strengthen them. So, and the way they did that was increasing a minimum safety buffer to 500 feet from structures, as well as from other boats and other swimmers and users, because they didn't have any public safety in their previous rules that they had proposed. Also, an increase of wake sports zone from 50 to 100 acres is safer because usually you have, especially on bigger lakes, more than one boat. And 50 acres is like, you could have one boat there operating, but it gets unsafe if you have more than that. And Lake Iroquois, because it's so shallow, it has a zone of 51 acres total. And so it just meets the requirement of that wake sports zone from the old rule. The new rule is 100 acres, which means that people can have their wake boats on the lake, just not use them for wake sports. And I know that Meg has a neighbor who she said is the nicest person ever, and he he's like, whatever, I don't think we need the rules, but he's moving on to other sports, I guess. So anyway, if we want to, I could send this and put the commissioners who approve it. Here it's due, to the Agency of Natural Resources by the 20th. At 4:30. I'll send this one. If we do that, I know Eric has to abstain from this. So,
Thank you, Laura.
yeah, any questions about that? I probably have more information than I gave you.
I'll start it off. How many of the, property owners along the shore of the lake right now have, wake boat level boats?
I just know of one.
Okay,
Meg seemed to think that at most 3 operate on Lake Iroquois at the same time.
I was out on a canoe this summer and I definitely saw a wake boat. It didn't even cross my mind to think of, like, it was more of just like more of a hazard that we had to sort of navigate around on
Right.
the canoe. I didn't think like they shouldn't be there. I just wonder like how many of those, what is A&R gonna do to like roll out awareness that someone pulling up to either a boat launch or a property owner, all of a sudden this boat, like you can use it, but you can't use it the way you probably thought you were gonna use it,
Mhm.
Use it as a regular boat.
Yeah.
Break out the paddles.
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they're gonna do that. I don't know if
Yeah.
there's gonna be a sign at Lake Iroquois or if the greeter says, sorry, you can't use that as a wake boat.
Right.
Because there does need to be a maximum depth of 20 feet, otherwise the bottom gets really churned up.
Oh, yeah. How
Yeah,
deep is
to be to be clear, those greeters are not, they're not cops. They're not there to enforce the laws. They can tell somebody,
Right.
hey, that you could somehow, I don't know how the heck you would get a ticket on Lake Iroquois unless I guess
A game warden would have to
game
be
warden
out
was out
there.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
but the greeters are there just to try and get people to remove invasive species off of their trailers and boats.
Yeah.
They're
They're
not
kids.
policing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're Rubenstein students that are interning with Eric for the summer.
I mean, that's a really fair question then, I guess, is, I would we want to amend a recommendation like that to, to say like we think that this could be an issue and that, or I just don't know enough about the rule. Like, does the rule stipulate that there's going to be like outreach and education? Has the legislature approved?
I didn't see anything like that.
Yeah.
I sort of feel like that's not ours to worry about, right? Like there's all sorts of rules about natural resource use that are like, I don't know, the state is so vast in terms of our resources and how remote access is, and it's up to individual agencies to figure out how they're like policing or enforcing their rules. And in some cases, like they don't have the capacity, but the rule is still there and there's some amount of deterrence that happens because the rule is there, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know, Eric, if you have anything else to add, but I sort of feel
Mhm.
Yeah, is that my connection or Kim's that's breaking up?
That's Kim.
That's
Kim.
Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I understand what Kim was saying, and I agree. I guess and I also don't know. I would hope that this rule would come with some education outreach or communication from Vermont DEC as they roll it out, if they roll it out. But it does give Fish and Wildlife game wardens another tool for managing boaters on small lakes. So as Kim pointed out, if a game warden was out there and on Lake Iroquois, that's certainly a possibility. There's a lot of anglers out there too. The game warden could cite someone for using the wake boat on this lake. It's not like they're going to have game wardens out on every small lake, obviously, but when a game warden is out, it gives them something else that they can another thing to enforce.
I support the, the letter. I was wondering as I was reading it, whether we should strip out, the reiteration of what's in the new rule, and just talk about what the rule would mean for Williston and Lake Iroquois. So I was gonna propose, could the two paragraphs that say increasing the minimum and an increase in the wake sport zone, if we could just keep the impact portion, so say something like these rules are important for public safety and ensure that wake sports will not be allowed on small lakes such as Lake Iroquois, partially located in Williston, while continuing to provide room for boats to operate safely on larger lakes. Or
Yeah,
something like that. And
yeah,
just
that's
have that
fine. There's
be-
just no reason to,
just in case
Yeah.
it differs slightly, and it
Yeah.
looks consistent from what I read, but
Yeah.
that seems maybe more clear to just.
I actually like it as a letter. I write
Okay.
letters to be internally consistent with each other, so to be able to cite specifically
Okay.
what elements we support. I mean, I view those as very helpful and important. Like, you can read this letter. I didn't read the rule, but I can read the letter and understand basically how the rule affects Williston.
The only word then that I would take out if we're gonna leave the details is the word obviously.
okay, yeah. Yes, of course.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good judgment word.
Is that
Yeah.
an opinion? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so who, just to wrap this up, who is putting their name on this?
Do we want to have a motion to approve it, or we don't even have a quorum to approve it as a commission?
We do, we have four.
We
You have
do.
four? I mean, I would rather have us submit it as the Conservation Commission rather than individuals. So I would, if the
what you're
commission's,
saying.
if the commission's interested in that, we would need a motion to then vote
Eric would
to,
just abstain.
for as the quorum,
All right, and then no names on it.
and no names.
Okay,
You good with that, Kim?
Yeah.
That's,
Okay,
and
I'll-
that's fine with me too. I just need it on the record that I abstained from voting on this. That's all.
Okay,
So I'll move.
Do you need it on the letter, Eric? Like, do you need it? No? Okay.
I'll move that we issue this letter of support to ANR on behalf of the Conservation Commission as amended.
Great, can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kim. All in favor will vote aye,
Aye.
and who is abstaining?
I will abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Motion carries.
Thank you.
We'll submit the letter
Thanks, Laura.
as a commission.
right,
Thanks,
Eric,
Laura.
I will make sure to note your name specifically as abstaining.
Great. Thank you, Dave.
All right, so just noting that those are important conversations. We're down on time. I had the ERF outreach campaign on the agenda for today. Is that something that really needs check-in, or is it kind of, you've made the schedule, it's moving along cleanly? Is that something
I
we
need
can
probably
take
2 minutes to make
Okay.
sure to know who's gonna send the upcoming ones, because we have two that are outstanding on. I don't know, is that okay, Dave W, if I really quick just confirm who's?
Yeah, let's get back to this. Let's get back to our continuation by 7:55.
Reed, alternatively, I feel like I forgot which one I'm supposed to be doing, so I can just say I'm gonna look today at which one I'm doing, and I might be
Yeah.
next. Sorry, I dropped the ball.
No, you're good. You're scheduled next for submitting something in the next few days around the 30 by 50 goal. How we plan to use the funds.
I'm on.
And there's some details in there for you to use. And the last two topics are out there waiting for somebody to claim them. So Eric and Laura, if you take a look at the spreadsheet and you see one of those last two that you're like, yeah, I want to do that again, or I want to post that one, just put your name in there to replace the question marks, and
oh, did I do that already?
not yet, I don't think.
Oh, I thought maybe I just sent you I thought I was gonna do the one on the 24th.
Okay, you want that one? Great.
Yeah.
I'll already put you in there then.
Okay,
Great, thank you. So we have two front porch forms that went in. Mine went in last week. Letter to the editor and the observer should be published this week. I didn't get a confirmation. I wasn't expecting one, but that should go in. I did mine a little differently. The LTE is written as the commissioner, so very neutral tone, informative, pushes people to the website. My front porch forum is a little bit more, more of my personal opinion,
Mhm.
more preferential for how I would like my neighbors to vote on it. I sort of balance that line and I'm fine with that. Reed kind of had the more conservative, I'm the speaking from the commission point of view, balanced front porch forum. So just be aware that if you're identifying yourself as a commissioner, refrain from saying vote yes for something, but if you're writing this as an individual, then I think you have a little bit more flexibility. Okay. With
Sounds great.
that,
And just to close that loop, for me, I looks like I'll be doing the post that's in row 8 on that spreadsheet, revisit why Article 8 again this year
Yeah, if
on
you're
March
willing to.
2nd. Sure.
Okay,
And that's
cool.
going into Front Porch Forum.
Yep, and there's a suggestion to
I see
post
those.
the
Perfect.
evening of
Thank
the
you.
1st to appear on the 2nd.
Got it. I will do that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
thanks.
Thank you.
So let's move to the next item on the agenda, our continuation of permit review, 2608.
Almost back on schedule. We'll get there.
All right, so just noting that Rick and Sue Brunel have joined online. Hello, Rick. I'm going to promote you to panelist, which means you can join. It'll ask you if you want to be promoted. You can click yes, and that'll mean you can share your screen and comment.
Should you choose to?
Should you choose to?
So I think that we got through the entirety of the staff report in the last meeting, and what I was gonna suggest that we really focus our discussion on here for the next half hour was the specifically the findings and the recommendations. And that being said, if people want a quick review of the application, then I think we can afford a couple minutes to go there, but happy to jump right in if we need to. Okay, so Dave, would you mind sharing your screen with the staff report? And I think we can just jump straight to the findings and then start our review process from there.
Yeah. Eric and Kim, can you confirm, is the screen sharing working for you? Are you seeing the?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so jumping to the recommendations, was that it?
Findings.
Fine, okay, the findings, right. So where it was left off last time.
Yeah.
So the findings are factual, supporting just what was discussed last time. A project is in the ARZD. Applicant proposes 78% open space, subject parcels, high priority ERF map. There are desired trails on the official map. There are significant wildlife habitat areas, URTES, unique natural community as defined by Williston's bylaw, and scenic view sheds. There are no class 2 wetlands. The project is considered high risk development in terms of erosion risk for slopes greater than 8%. And there are no farmlands of important or special flood hazard areas. So those are those factual findings, which bring us to possible recommendations. So recommendations number 1 through 5. Number 1 through 3 are related to the habitat disturbance assessment. So number 1 should be a subject of discussion. This is what I proposed with regards to the peer review that was mentioned last time. So a town-sponsored peer review is required for discretionary permit application or to comply with WTB 27.5.7.1, which is the
It really rolls off your tongue.
really rolls up tongue. That's
Yeah, you said that so fast.
I'm working on my radio voice, radio commercials. So that was the bylaw statement that was amended in early 2024 that says the town must be the hiring party. And then 2 and 3 are simply noting that the HTA should identify whether uncommon, rare, threatened, or endangered species are located on the parcel, which was included in the Bowman assessment. And it should identify any significant resources in the unique natural community, which also was included in the Bowman assessment. Number 4 is the site plan must show defined building envelopes of a half acre or less for the pros lots 1 or 2. So noting that the lots that were shown on the conceptual plan were larger than the half acre clearing limit. So that this is more reiterating a bylaw requirement than anything else.
That's typical though, right?
That's typical. And then number 5 is boilerplate. The applicant must submit a prevention for runoff and erosion control plan. That's simply triggered by that high risk. You either have slopes greater than 8% or you're clearing more than 2 acres. And then number 6 through 9 are simply open placeholders. If you have any comments that you'd like to add regarding the scope of the HDA, regarding the desired trail, regarding the scenic view sheds, or regarding the open space lot configuration.
Yeah, we'll start with 3.
Let's go ahead and lead off to say that I think on the desired trail topic, I would like a recommendation in here to help the DRB. And based on our conversation last time, my take was we still desire connectivity, but the class 4 road we believe provides the connectivity without any additional trail easements.
I think let's hold off on that trail piece. I think that if there's no objections, I would actually like to start with the town sponsor of peer to recommendation number 1. It's not highlighted, but I think that it was a pretty substantial part of what we talked about in the first week. And then I would like to get into the sort of open topics.
Can I just ask for a favor, which is I had to leave at 8:30 that meeting and I have to again today. And for like the next couple weeks until this thing is over. Anyway, could someone like in 1 sentence, I read the minutes, but just like summarize that for me because I think I missed like what the substance
The
of what went
HDA?
into that. Yeah.
Dave, why don't you go ahead and
Sure. Okay, here's the quick summary. The applicant started planning for this project and contracted Bowman to be the civil engineers to advise on design and producing a design that was consistent with the bylaws. Bowman initiated a habitat disturbance assessment on behalf of the client.
Proactively.
And so when this came to staff, hey, we're interested in this project, and submitting an application. We identified that there was a conflict there and reached out to Bowman. I went to the site and met with Levi Kezi, who's a biologist, who's also currently working for the town of Williston and has done habitat disturbance assessments for us in the past. He's the wetland consultant on the Allen Bridge project.
And he was at the meeting 2 weeks ago.
He was at the meeting last week. So so we met and we came back and discussed with staff. I discussed with Matt, Director of Planning and Zoning. And really the question was, how do we ensure that the bylaw is conformed? Noting that Bowman jumped the gun on this, but also noting that we trust that Levi's going to go out there and do the bulk of what needs to be done based on his past history, but we also and we want to, if possible, avoid a situation where the applicant is going to be now required to pay for 2 identical habitat disturbance assessments if it's not necessary.
And so in the minutes, it had been written that like the commission was okay with this for one time. And then when we were updating the minutes, we removed that. And so that's the discussion that you all
Yes.
that I'm like not up to speed on, right? Is that like we're not sure actually how we feel about that as a commission.
We just didn't have time to like actually discuss it last time.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
Okay, got it,
the
got it.
proposal from town staff, from the planning and zoning department, really, in trying to cooperate and find a reasonable solution here was to essentially on a one-time basis execute a third-party peer review of the habitat disturbance assessment that was conducted by Levi, ensuring that the town is hiring a third-party biologist to review, take some oversight over the habitat disturbance assessment work on site, but that consultant is going to be looking at the work that has been done and trying to avoid any redundancy. For example, it does not seem necessary for a biologist to need to go look at much of what's been proposed as open space. If there's any further analysis or checking in terms of field work required, it would most likely simply be in the areas that are proposed for the new home sites. So I'll leave it
Okay.
back to you.
Thank you, Dave. Good summary.
Got it, thanks.
I wonder if, what I'm concerned with is that we view this as like a one-time exception and applicants view this as like it's fine, we'll work our way through that requirement, we'll just do it for you, and we have an arrangement with the town, we'll do a third-party review or something. And it doesn't sort of get interpreted by either the applicant or more specifically Bowman or any other developer as like a requirement. We've been pretty hard and fast on, as a commission, not making exceptions to these bylaws and saying like we are just the implementers of the bylaws that have been approved. I don't think that what you're proposing is, or what's planning commission or planning staff is proposing, I don't think it's unreasonable, but I don't want it to be written off by future or current developers as like, well, we found a loophole and we got a way through this.
I had the same reaction, like that was my gut reaction was, I also think the proposal is totally reasonable, and I can see it setting a precedent where people do it and then go, oh, oops, we didn't know. You don't want to make the homeowner pay twice, even though they in fact did know. And like, I don't want to like expect the worst in people. Like I realize that I'm expressing a very like pessimistic, but I do think it's possible.
Laura.
Yeah, it seemed to me that they genuinely had done this before and just had no idea that the town changed their policy. And so,
yeah, I believe that. I'm more thinking of people in the future being like,
Right.
oh,
100%.
look what they did. They were like, we didn't know in the town, and we can now do that. We can play dumb, and the town will do
Exactly.
this thing.
I had the same concerns that there's I don't believe there's any intent here in this one to get around the rules, but any precedent we set now will be harder to change down the road.
That being said, is it reasonable to include in the findings? And I think that's, important why we reviewed them here in advance of this meeting is, should we put something in the findings that is more of, directed at the DRB to say the applicant did not follow this bylaw as it's required by going to the town for the habitat disturbance assessment. Planning staff has recommended an alternative to the bylaw, and the DRB should assess it, for its reasonableness. I don't know that we are capable of this commission to sort of make that exception on our own.
I mean, I'll just clarify that the planning staff is absolutely not recommending an alternative to the bylaw. So the letter of the bylaw is the town needs to hire an independent biologist or other qualified professional to conduct a habitat disturbance assessment. What is being proposed is that the scope of that assessment works with the work that has already been done to minimize the redundancy. And therefore, the scope is the minimum that is required to meet the bylaw. And therefore, with the secondary objective of reducing the extra costs to the applicant. I'll say that when we were looking at the situation and trying to think about the resolutions, I did go and look at the bylaw very hard and say, was this written in such a way that there are flexible carve outs to be able to say, okay, well, this is a situation where the staff can make a call, for example, and say, we have looked at this and understand that it is acceptable. And there's not flexible language in there, right? So that's why a determination was made that the town, still needs to go ahead and hire someone. So I just want to be really clear, it's not an alternative to the bylaw that is being proposed. And maybe peer review as language is made it seem like there is something else going on, but when it boils down to it, what is being proposed is simply that the scope of the habitat disturbance assessment, which there is flexibility to modify according to the situation, is reduced to the minimum that is really necessary given the work that has already been done.
Reed?
It's my opinion that I don't think this is likely to become a pattern. Partly because typically at pre-app, we don't get a habitat disturbance assessment. It's usually something we ask them to perform. Or if they do bring one at that stage, it's after a conversation with staff, hey, we're gonna be bringing forward an application, and staff advises them, well, you can go ahead and do the HDA if you want to, but you only really need it by the discretionary permit phase. So I think there's a cost associated with doing it, which is a deterrent to do it early. There's a cost associated to having a peer review, even if we were to do that a couple times over the next decade. I think that's enough of a deterrent. I don't think it's going to become a pattern at this point. It's not a pattern, so I'm okay with it this time.
I mean, that being said, Reed, I think you're calling a really interesting point. It's one that I have also been thinking about, is that we do normally make that recommendation. We don't often see these pre-apps with the habitat disturbance assessment. So here we're saying that the recommendation is to do the peer review. I am, maybe instead of putting it, maybe something in the findings that sort of calls out that this pre-app contains a habitat disturbance assessment.
It doesn't meet the bylaw
Assessed
yet
by Bowman. And then the recommendation can reflect the town, as it's written here, that to meet the bylaw, we will do a peer review of it. We can include in that recommendation, however, it is the preference of the commission that these HDAs be conducted following pre-app, under contract with the town, because we do have a lot of opinions in these meetings and discussions about aspects of the habitat disturbance assessment that we're particularly interested in, and obviously we didn't get that advanced input into this process. So I don't know, I would be comfortable with this recommendation with that inclusion of the finding, because the HDA, the habitat disturbance assessment, was sort of conducted sort of
outside the normal process.
And in the recommendation, we say, it's our preference to deal with the HDA after pre-app, under contract with the town.
Kim has her hand up.
Go ahead, Kim.
I just want to clarify that they're still, like, this is actually more expensive for them. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
That they're paying for, so that also is like a level of deterrence for people to try to do this in the like for this to happen a lot in the future, right? Am I thinking of that correctly?
That's my point, Kim, is that
Yeah.
if you decide to do an HDA prior to staff directing you on to do it and how to do it, that's a risk, because if the project doesn't move forward, you've paid for it. And the precedent we're setting is that you still will have to pay for the town to go out and assess your HDA, basically. So anyway, I
I
think
mean-
that's enough of a deterrent.
To be honest, in this situation, I think it should also be clear that I do not think any responsibility is on the applicant, and I
No,
think that
no, it's not.
this is Bowman's.
They gaffed.
Oh, I don't think
Issue.
anybody, I feel like this was just like actually like due diligence. I don't think, yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to insinuate that I thought anyone was like had malintent. I don't think.
Yeah, no, I just think, I mean, if anything, I think the applicant would be fully within the rights to ask Bowman to eat the cost of this.
Yes.
I agree.
You know, they're a civil engineer that does a lot of work in Williston. They should absolutely have checked the bylaw.
Yeah.
To know who needs
I
to
agree.
contract it.
I'm entirely thinking about this as a form of our due diligence
Yeah.
that matters for the record. Recommendations going to the DRB are consistent with like how we want to see things moving forward. Yeah, so like that's, yeah,
I heard your point, David, and I think there should be a finding that the HDA as completed didn't comply with the bylaw, and we have a
Mhm.
proposal and the recommendations on how to make it comply. I think the recommendation portion about we'd like to see this after pre-app is more of a recommendation to staff that should be in the minutes that we discussed it and we'd like to see, ideally, we'd like to see these coming in after staff has had time to kind of educate the applicant and whoever's working with them on it.
okay. How does that
Because
sound?
I think the DRB is gonna be like, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, sounds great.
Okay.
So just for clarity, in terms of what you'd like to see amended for recommendation number one, you would like it to be clear that the habitat disturbance assessment that was required did not meet the bylaw.
Well,
In a finding, not
in
a
a-
recommendation.
yeah.
So in a finding that an HDA was conducted but does not meet the bylaw without further work.
yeah, Laura, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe the recommendation then can, just so it's clearer, that it's not actually so much a peer review, but an actual habitat disturbance assessment that's recommended. Though, they can be, you know, using the HDA that has already been done.
Yeah, like the word peer review versus
Yeah,
completing an issue.
I would say, I would almost add is still required for discretionary permit application.
a town-sponsored HDA is still required, even though, but can be done, what would be a good word, minimally,
Any other
What
thoughts on?
about, what about a town-sponsored peer review is recommended? A peer review of the Bowman is recommended in order for the habitat disturbance assessment to meet. To comply. I'm trying to figure out. Cause staff is recommending that they don't redo the entire HDA,
right,
but rather they have a different scope of work for that.
What is it? What does the town sponsored mean, actually? A town sponsored, does that mean the town is gonna eat the cost on that?
No,
Yeah,
town-
that's actually
Here's
how I
the
was
services.
interpreting that too. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah,
A
the applicant shall pay to conduct a peer review.
well, they pay a fee in the town contract, so.
Well,
as the town does pay the applicant, there's a fee that, or sorry, the town pays the contractor.
Yeah,
The applicant pays a fee that
right,
recoups.
how
that
about a
cost.
town contracted peer review? Is that
yeah, that's
better
better,
than sponsored?
yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
I think that clarifies it.
so a town contracted peer review of the Bowman
Yeah.
is required for discretion in order to comply with.
Yeah.
Okay, are we good with that recommendation as amended?
mhm,
And the inclusion of the finding that the HDA conducted before pre-app does not by itself meet the requirements of the town bylaws?
Yes. I
Thank you.
think that's a good add on the findings.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. That topic is concluded and we can move to the open recommendations. 6 through 9. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave, if you wanna.
No, go ahead.
So let's return to the trail easement. Reed was referencing our desired connectivity to the Brownell Mountain site. I think that is a that sounds lovely. I don't think that the class 4 road access road is a sure thing. So
I actually wasn't talking about the access road up and
Okay.
on. So I'm talking about there was a desired trail.
oh, you're talking about the
East
south
west
side.
toward Shelburne
Mhm.
Pond, so for that portion. That desired trail that's mapped, because that's what this is talking about, is mapped desired trails.
Right.
Is already. That connectivity is already met by the class 4 road. Would be my
Okay.
proposed recommendation,
Functionality of the desired trail is met.
yeah, without additional easements or.
Okay.
Sort of brings up an interesting question a little bit in that class 4 roads are sort of like by definition unmaintained, and they do become like very washed out, and in some cases can
Mhm.
basically be like a riverbed that would actually be like that are quite difficult to pass. And so I don't like, I think you're right in this moment, but I can also see like a scenario under climate change where we have more runoff in the spring where it basically is not a trail anymore. And it might just be like a thing for us to consider in the future of like class 4 roads, like we're not maintaining them. It's kind of up to landowners to make sure they're passable. Are they going to continue to meet our bar for passability?
I really wanna, yes, I agree with you, Kim. I've biked past that 100 times and I've never once seen that connectivity, and I'm always looking for interesting and unique ways to get from A to B that aren't on the map. So I agree. I don't think
Or I'm
that is
like,
maintained.
there's a class 4 between in Jericho between Snipe Island and Snipe Ireland Road, and it is like essentially a riverbed, and I think Jericho threw it up. Like they don't, it's like pass at your own risk. So like they do like kind of, I don't know, I think they are vulnerable to just fading away.
So then a question for staff would be, what jurisdiction with the current right of way for that class 4 does the town have to go in and make improvements if we want it to be more passable than it's becoming?
Mhm.
Do you know?
Complete jurisdiction up into the town line.
Yeah,
Yeah, plus part of the road, is maintained by the town, correct?
up to
But
this,
not,
To the park,
yeah, not
To
up to
up to
the
the
existing track.
Yeah.
Which is important. Um. uh, There's also I think the Vast Trail runs over that road.
Just up here.
Yeah,
and as part of the project, they're gonna add driveways, so they're gonna actually extend the road a bit, southwest there. There we go, you can see the new driveways, so it's gonna, the road is gonna be extended a little bit in terms of the maintained portion. But then from that last driveway on, it's gonna be. It's gonna remain as it has been, which is an unmained, essentially not unmained. They're on.
Project.
No worries, so yeah, it's just that last portion. David, can you put your cursor on that pink line past, yeah, so it's gonna be maintained up to there. And then potentially some kind of turnaround, which needs to be worked out with Public Works. And then from there on, it's gonna remain as it is today, an unmaintained class 4 road.
which is okay. I mean, we really want it to just be there in case we need it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, in the future, if we say, okay, we've talked to St. George and they are amenable to maintaining a path up to that, or a passable maintained gravel path or something up to that point, great, we can now go in and we can add gravel and level or whatever, so that there's now that connection. more formally.
Are we talking about an easement for like a road here, Reed, or are you talking about just a easement for primitive paths? I mean, that doesn't involve laying down gravel.
Well, it depends on how much washout and stuff there is. If there's a lot of washout, it might mean structures, it might mean
Okay.
gravel, it might mean just clearing brush. But the question is, do we need additional easements beyond the class 4 road? Because there is a town easement for the class 4 road, right? Like the town can come in and
Yeah,
do
is-
something.
is
Oh, it's a
it
right of way, yeah.
A right of way, sorry, a right of way.
Okay.
So within the right of way, the town can already do things. Do we need anything more than that is the question.
I think the another option to consider, that is sort of like a minimum way to accommodate the, like, there are several ways, if you look at the bylaw, you know, what the applicant must do is accommodate the infrastructure. That doesn't mean they have to build it. That doesn't necessarily mean that an easement has to be negotiated as a part of the project. Does mean they can't, you know, obstruct it or prevent it from being, they do something that would prevent it from being built in the future. So one other possible thing that could be done is simply to ensure that this open space line gets drawn in such a way that it doesn't cross, and drawn in such a way that should an easement need to be negotiated in the future, you only have to deal with one property owner. So as is, you know, let's imagine that this space is 10 feet. Let's say, you know, the town did really need to look at access on here because this was washed out impossible. If, you know, this space is 10 feet, the town could negotiate with the landowner to, you know, get a 10-foot easement to bypass that washed out area and restore that connectivity, only to deal with the landowner. If this came down, you know, right in the middle of that, for example, then
Two parcels are involved.
you know, two parcels are involved, it's now more complicated. So that could be another thing that's looked at. I don't necessarily see that as necessary, but it would be something that could be viewed as accommodating.
I think to this, we could sort of resolve this, but in the recommendation section by just saying all development or all maps in the next phase, you know, clearly show the right of way established by that road, and for that recommendation, you know, keeping the property line possible. Yeah, like something to that extent. I mean, we are talking about 10 feet here. Going to St. George, so just being able to see that class 4 right of way on the final maps, you know, for clarity.
Okay. So the applicant shall clearly show the Lincoln Road right of way
Yeah,
on on the discretionary permit plans.
yes. I would like to bring up.
I tried to email Dave a video and it's too big. I'm trying to text it to Eric and Reed, but my internet is terrible even with my video off. But like I think it's like zooming through the air. I have a video of like a class 4 in Heinsberg that is like it's really not a road anymore. And I just want to make sure everybody can see like what happens to these runoff like very quickly. And I just feel like it's like relevant to understand like it's not a road. It's not like Governor Chittenden, even though that maybe I think is technically a class 4.
So Kim, is your concern that we should be recommending that it be kept passable, or is your concern that you don't
We're
think
thinking about it in terms of connectivity, and we're making an assumption that it is passable. Like, you know, if we're like building our argument on the foundation that like it's there, it will be passable, the connectivity is there, and we need to maintain it, then I just think we should understand like what that actually means and like how much. I think a lot of the class 4 roads in Vermont that are passable are maintained by somebody. They're
I
just
think
not
our
maintained
point-
by somebody officially.
The right of way.
Yeah, Kim, I think our point is that we just want to see it on the map so that we'll have future sort of visibility into like what the property and development has, including that right of way as access points.
If the right of way is shown clearly, then, and we believe that the town could make it passable using that right of way if we desired, then that's what matters to me. I have no idea what the on-ground conditions are today. And I don't think a lot of people are going through there on bikes or other vehicles, so I think my point is just if the right of way is there and we're confident we could use it, then I'm satisfied.
Well, the other thing is you don't have to make a recommendation on it at all, at pre-app. And we could go get some photographic information or walk the trail.
I think, I mean, my itch is scratched if we just see it on the final site plans. I would like to talk about the other part of the parcel, which is the north end of the parcel. And it is contiguous to Brownell Mountain. And I wanted to ask if we want to seek like a floating easement for future connectivity within that proposed open space to provide access to the town-owned part of the land.
Yeah, up, you're talking northeast corner of the parcel, the open space parcel.
Yeah. Yeah, specifically, you know, if in future arrangements, we can find an accommodation if there's even a need at this point. But to have a floating easement in that designated open space area might streamline some things for us. Would that be allowable under a recommendation here, Dave?
I think that discussion would be outside of this review.
Okay,
That's my.
can you say why?
So with regards to desired trails. You are commenting as a commission on. These trails that show up on the map crossing this parcel. Yes, last time we discussed, if you look at the map, there is, just off this little locator map, there is a vertical. Desired trail that basically runs up the shoulder of
South Brunel Road.
Here. So you'd be making the argument that
Page 4 shows it.
that north-south connection is mapped.
Conceptually, not literally.
So conceptually that is relevant to this parcel. And for this review, and I think that's a bit of a leap. I don't disagree that there is, if you were to actualize that desired connection, you would need to look at the whole area because it's very difficult. But I think in terms of what the Conservation Commission is really is doing here in terms of review of this proposal, I don't think it comes into play.
Okay. Guess I'm surprised to hear that, but we can proceed. Seems like if we wanted to make that recommendation, I mean, we still could. I mean, I don't know why it's out of. I don't want to get too hung up on like. I don't know. I mean, I hear your point, but
I think the DRB likely would throw out that recommendation as there is no map desired trail north-south on this parcel.
Yeah, and I should clarify, I don't think it doesn't mean that it isn't something that the Conservation Commission could discuss or could approach the landowner to discuss.
But in terms of approval.
I think, in terms of like what the review process here is, the way that this is designed, right? The opportunity to comment here to the DRB is really vested within the official map. That's what the DRB is looking at. They're looking to say, is the landowner accommodating the desired infrastructure that's drawn on the official map? That's what they're ruling on. And then they're looking to the WCC comment for their recommendation of whether that is achieved. So they're gonna see this and they're gonna say, well, what does the WCC think? Are they accommodating that infrastructure? Is their plan blocking that infrastructure? So that's really, I think, the substance of what is being looked at here. And I think the question about, if there is a possibility to, discuss with the landowner, town acquisition of a floating easement for north-south connectivity to the town parcel north above. I think it's certainly a valid topic of discussion. I just think it's external to this review.
Okay.
I gotta run to my 9 a.m. I'll see you all in 2 weeks.
Okay, let's continue. So we've made a recommendation on the class 4 business. We've made a recommendation on the what is the item 6 then, Dave, regarding the HDA scope?
I think based on the discussion, it doesn't have to be anything.
I
Okay,
think number 6 can go away.
Yeah,
Number 7. Can just say that we'd like to see the class 4 clearly marked on final plan.
yeah. Haven't talked about scenic view sheds and haven't talked about open space configuration.
I have no concerns about scenic view sheds, for what it's worth.
Yeah, same here.
Same. The open space configuration seems appropriate to me. Given the sort of need to see those lines, clearly marked in the final, God, I cannot think.
Site plans.
Site plan, right? I would say that the recommendation is that that it not deviate significantly from what we've reviewed here in the pre-app. Otherwise, like, a lot of these recommendations may end up sort of changing. So how would that look as a recommendation to?
I think I would not put a recommendation because there's no change we're requesting. Do the findings already say that the open space lot?
Yeah,
The
the findings reflect that the open space.
Do we have anything in there about open space?
I think it's just the final site plan shall.
Yeah, it says the applicant proposed, so it was, and that meets the requirements. So finding 1 for me covers open space. I don't have any
yeah.
further.
Yeah,
I think, so the reason that placeholder there is really relates to how the WCC felt about
Oh,
this discussion of the slopes.
oh, yeah, those little.
If the
the
Conservation
granularity.
Commission felt, our opinion is that this map layer should be interpreted completely strictly as the way to judge whether 30% slope is contained in a parcel.
I think the building envelopes are already gonna be reduced from what was initially shown, so. But it's just a matter of whether the open space contains 100% of slopes steeper than 30%.
Right. And that's, the way the bylaw is written, the open space must contain all slopes greater than
Okay.
30%. So it's really a question of interpretation of how that gets determined. And, if you look at just to recap that conversation, if you look at the site plan, actually, it's not shown there. That was mapped with a very fine scale, and it shows, greater amounts of 30% entering into this lot, which if you were looking at that and reading the bylaw, you'd say, oh, that's not supposed to be like
It's gotta
that.
be open space.
If you look at the town's regulatory layer that is posted online that we use for more frequently for review, that is computed at a greater level of granularity. It's what's shown in red here. So then you'd be judging, okay, does this little tip mean that the parcel boundary should be adjusted to have a little notch? What about this little triangle? What about this triangle? So where there's gray area is the bylaw simply says, it must have all 30% or steeper, but it doesn't say how you determine what is measured as 30% or steeper, at what scale that is measured at, and how the map layer determines that when it comes to small.
And what is the finding that is specific to this section?
Currently, the finding says it complies.
Mhm.
Right.
And I would agree with that. Although it might help the DRB if we articulate in a recommendation that there are negligible uh areas of greater than 30-degree slopes, depending on what map and what granularity, what survey and what granularity.
Can't the recommendation just be the final the final open space parcel shall be drawn such that it is inclusive of the town law, for, including 30% or greater slopes?
No, that would mean they'd have to
Right.
significantly revise that lot in the bottom left
Yeah.
to not have any red triangles in it.
What we're saying is it's okay to have those little, it could be a rock. Yeah,
Okay.
Well, basically, the DRB is gonna look at that and go, huh, wait a minute, those are 30% slopes and they're supposed to be in the open space according to the bylaw. And we need to give them our opinion on whether they should ignore those little red triangles. Or whether,
Yeah, okay. I mean, do we know enough to know why they should be ignored? I'm not understanding why. Maybe I'm just being particularly dense this morning, and I apologize for that, but
so that lot would have to be reduced. Probably by at least 30% to avoid the red triangles and have reasonable boundary lines. So I guess the question is.
I mean, this is just pre-app. These are not the final lines. I mean,
Right, we're making.
that's my only point, is that we don't have to give that all clear signal here and now. We can just say that the final lines should, I mean, they're gonna do a site visit, right? They're gonna be.
Well, I think you should provide direction because, either, I think what we don't want is for the applicant to be walking away with a question of, we don't actually know what we're supposed to be doing here.
Are
Do
we
these
on track
lots
or
need to
not?
be changed or not? So, I mean, I think when you're looking at the bylaw, your determination, the DRB's determination is really to judge that on the intent of how that is written. So does must include mean strict adherence to, drawing your lines around every piece of red that shows up on this? Or does it mean must include as practical and
As close as
feasible, right? As close as reasonably possible. What is the intent as written? So it's just a gray area, or not even a gray area, it's just like where interpretation comes down to the subjective line.
The intent of including steep slopes in the open space parcel is to avoid additional erosion from activity around those steep slopes. And I don't see a reason to
Right.
believe here that there's going to be some negative consequence. So that's why I'm in favor of a looser interpretation and saying that the lot lines as drawn at pre-app comply with the
It's already a high risk area. They're gonna have to take erosion control mitigation into account. So
we could say that the building envelope shall appear at discretionary permit, not including clearing. Or not including any of the 30-degree slopes, that would make sure there's not disturbance in those areas.
Yeah.
David, does that, David, Maroney, does that, from a staff perspective, does that feel like it would be productive? To exclude any red on that map from the building envelope on the next phase?
So I mean, I think this is really it'll be the DRB's decision and they're gonna rely on your judgment. So I think this is an area where I don't, it's not my place to make a final decision. I think there are practical implications of what it means to try to draw a little circle around this tiny.
Yeah, we don't,
triangle, but-
we only want open space that is contiguous, right?
Right,
And
so then you're creating.
Yeah.
Like, do you have this sort of loop like thing, like you carve out that whole area, because that's where it gets into, in my book, just like, I don't think the bylaw envisioned having to choose between, pixels on a map.
Right, it's not contiguous with the other slopes. Yeah.
Okay, I think we should just not comment on it and leave it with the finding that the current open space complies.
Yeah. I agree.
I think we're getting too into the details.
yeah, I don't think we have enough to go on here. So I think just leaving it to that straight percentage observation and the findings is probably all we can do at this point.
Okay.
So that means we're striking all of the
Yeah.
yellow 6 through 9,
8 and 9.
leaving 1 through 5.
And I guess you've added a 6 though, that says that is reflecting
Yeah.
the visibility of the road.
Yep.
That's true.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, so sorry that took so long.
I'll move approval of the findings and recommendations as drafted, as amended, excuse me.
Thank you, Reed.
I'll second.
Thank you, Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's 4. Great, thank you, Eric. That's 4, so that's approved. No one left as voted members. We will,
Before we leave that topic, David,
yeah,
I would be interested in Mr. Maroney at least helping us have that conversation with the property owner about that potential connection to the town-owned parcel separately. Seems like now's a good time while they're thinking about their parcel and the future of it and all that stuff. It's a good time to have that offline conversation. Is that something that everybody supports?
Yeah,
yep. And I think that was part of what we were hoping to continue into the ERF active
Oh, okay.
strategy discussion. Dave and I did have a conversation about that last week. I think that is outside the scope of this pre-app. And so I think we should table that active ERF discussion though for next time. That will also incidentally give us some insight because it will be post-vote on the ERF funding, so we will have a little bit more information to go on. So let's table that until next month. I do want to go into this executive session. Dave and I did have a conversation about some topics that are not public at this point.
Sure.
All right, great. So we're gonna end the public session. The review is done for let's see. Oh, Doug is with us and Rick and Sue are now. The WCC's reviews is completed and we'll have the finalized recommendations posted on the DRB agenda for the 24th. Thanks for joining us. So Lynn and Eric, I'm gonna send you a link to in just a second. I'll send you a link to a meeting and then we'll close this webinar room. Since attendees can join a webinar at any time. So we'll close the webinar room and we'll just do a quick 10 minutes for the executive session. So what I do need from folks. First of all,
Do you have
let me
a
stop sharing for a second.
Do you have a suggested motion to enter executive session?
Yes.
I'd be happy to make it.
Do we need that now?
I think we should make the motion before we end the
Okay, go ahead.
resume.
Okay,
I think the motion should also include at least a high level reason why we're going into executive session.
It should.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so executive session, so everyone here is a veteran of the commission, so you've done this before. No public body may hold or conclude executive session except for a set list of items. So a motion to enter executive decision must make the finding that premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body at a substantial disadvantage with regards to discussion of one of the following. And this is the negotiating or securing of a real estate purchase or lease option. So a motion should say, having found that premature general public knowledge of this discussion would clearly place the public body at a substantial disadvantage, we move to enter executive decision to discuss a negotiating or securing a real estate purchase.
So moved.
Thank you, Reed.
I'll second.
Do we need, any votes in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, we'll move to executive session.
Okay, so we're gonna end the public session and then Lynn and Eric, just check your email for a link to the, I'll end this and then I will send you a link in email for the meeting that will open. Sound good? All right, thanks for joining
Sounds
us.
good.
Rick and Sue. Yeah, end this right now.